It's 5:30. Should we start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our live stream seminar with Larry Stone, Santa Clara County Assessor. Today, we are also streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, 一直播, Weibo, and TikTok. Today, we have a special raffle drawing. Don't forget to register for this free raffle drawing with two special prizes. The registration form for the raffle is available in the public message to everyone in Zoom. Hi, my name is Coco Tan. I'm a realtor with Keller Williams Realty in the San Francisco Bay Area. Today, we are joined with Clara, the Chinese American Real Estate Association, a wonderful real estate organization that brings together some of the most dedicated professionals in the real estate industry. We would like to give a big special thank you to Mr. Wilson Chai with Bank of America, the president of Korea, who made all this happen today. Hello, Wilson.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Coco, for the nice introduction.
Thank you. Korea was founded with a mission statement to promote the social and economic well-being of associates and to further the professional image of Chinese Americans who are engaged in the field of real estate. The San Francisco Bay attracts the best, brightest, and most innovative people from all around the world. It is such a great place to live and a great place to chase your dreams. We're also very blessed to have excellent local leadership that celebrates and encourages the freedom to chase those dreams. We're very honored to have one of those leaders join us today. In fact, he is one of the most influential leaders in Santa Clara County who has been a pillar of our community for a very long time. He is the famous Larry Stone, a man who has been instrumental in helping make our community one of the most attractive places to live. San Jose Magazine named Larry Stone one of the Silicon Valley's 100 most powerful leaders. Hans Johnson, a famous Pulitzer Prize-winning author and Washington Post reporter, wrote a book called Sleepwalking Through History, a best-selling book. In his book, he described Larry Stone as bright, articulate, an American rarity, a proven political success in the time of political failure. Larry Stone was first elected assessor in 1994 and overwhelmingly re-elected 6 times by the residents of Santa Clara County, which stretches north to Palo Alto, south to Gilroy, and includes San Jose, the capital of Silicon Valley. The county boasts a population of 1.9 million people, greater than that of 13 states. Larry Stone has been a financial manager on Wall Street and co-founded a successful Bay Area real estate investment and development firm. He served 16 years as a council member and the mayor of Sunnyvale, a period during which the city earned an international reputation for effectiveness and became a model for President Clinton and Vice President Gore's efforts to reform the federal bureaucracy. President Clinton said, "The National Performance Review was modeled in part upon the remarkable reinvention efforts pioneered by the city of Sunnyvale, where Larry Stone served as mayor." As county assessor, Larry Stone has overseen remarkable improvements to streamline the operations of his office, eliminate backlogs, and achieve higher levels of public service, all while consistently operating substantially under budget. The State Board of Equalization acknowledged his office as one of the best managed assessors operations in California. Larry Stone also has been an active and effective civic leader in many fields, ranging from the arts to education to environment. He was instrumental in co-founding an innovative $11 million education endowment foundation that has contributed nearly $20 million to benefit a local public elementary school district. A native of Seattle, he has an MBA from the University of Washington and has studied at the Institute of Politics at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Larry Stone and his wife, Carmen, have lived in Sunnyvale since 1970, where they raised 3 sons. Wow, this is such a fantastic resume for a man that has accomplished and done so much for our community. We're very honored to have him here today to talk about COVID-19, Silicon Valley's economy and prospects for recovery. Insights from Santa Clara County Assessor Larry Stone. Welcome, Mr. Larry Stone.
Well, thank you. Wow, that's a very nice introduction.
Thank you so much for taking your time to be here today. We look forward to learning from you today.
Great. Well, I'm glad to be here. You know, last year, I was talking about an impending recession. I said we will have a recession because we always do. Recessions tend to be very cyclical. I said at that time, our tech economy is very volatile. Our cycles in Silicon Valley tend to be faster and steeper, going up and coming down. Last year, I said the next recession will be a normal recession. I called it a soft landing. Well, today we are facing a crash landing, unemployment rates reaching the Great Recession levels. One pundit described it as, quote, like being in a wheelchair pushed down a very long flight of stairs. COVID-19 has suddenly inserted a level of uncertainty in the global economy that makes normal analysis very difficult. Silicon Valley is a global magnet for high-risk venture capital. When times are good, they're very, very good. But when things turn down, the descent can be dramatic. It's like when Warren Buffett said, it's only when the tide goes out that you learn who is swimming naked. COVID-19 is a monumental health and humanitarian crisis of global significance. Eventually, experts believe that the medical aspects will diminish, like SARS and Ebola, but only after a vaccine. However, the economic impact of this pandemic-triggered recession will remain for a much longer period of time. How can the stock market, which recently reached record levels, go up when the economy continues to struggle? Well, the stock market is not the economy. Investors are not worried about the past. They always look ahead to the future. Economic activity is highly globalized. Disruptions in business and economic activity can have a sustained effect beyond the immediate medical crisis. The debate among economists is how fast economic activity will bounce back. Will it be a U-shaped recovery or a V-shaped recovery? Will it be long and painful recovery like the Great Recession, or will well-balanced economy before COVID return to normal when a vaccine is available? Or a W-shaped economy is a possibility if improving economic activity collapses again from another wave of the virus, creating a double-dip recession. There's a new letter in the alphabet-obsessed economics, a K-shaped recovery. That's one in which the upper path of the K is led by Wall Street and major banking and real estate interests. The lower path of the K is kind of the real economy, comprised of small frontline service-based businesses, essentially bifurcating the economy and exacerbating inequality. A tale of two recessions, and maybe a tale of two recoveries. JP Morgan believes that it may be a decade before the US economy fully recovers. We are dealing first with a health crisis, not an economic crisis. We must resolve the health crisis if we ever expect to resolve the economic crisis. Donald Trump thinks it's the reverse. Projections about the economy are at the mercy of medical researchers in search of a vaccine. GDP declined at an annual rate of 33% in July. That's triple the worst quarterly economic decline since 1947. Business investments, retail sales, home construction, exports, consumer and government spending, all are reaching record levels of decline. The US Consumer Confidence Index plunged 30% from pre-COVID levels and hit a 6-year low in August. Consumers are less optimistic about the short-term economic outlook and the labor market. The Federal Reserve reported, and I quote, "The outlook remains highly uncertain for any substantial recovery for the rest of this year." During the Great Depression, income declined 12% in a single year. The US exceeded that level in the first half of this year. The economic downturn is putting intense downward pressure on wages. California, and particularly Silicon Valley, has led the nation's economic prosperity for nearly 10 consecutive years since the end of the Great Recession, the longest economic expansion in recorded history. Well, that long record period of prosperity is certainly over. Silicon Valley's unemployment rate dropped from 14% to 8.4% in July, which is a very encouraging trend. But it was only 2.3% at the beginning of this year. San Jose has recovered about 31% of the jobs lost in the February to April area, when the coronavirus paralyzed the country. The UCLA Anderson School of Management projects that employment in the US will not return to previous peak levels until late 2022 at the earliest. Extreme market volatility leads to reduced consumption for an economy that is driven by consumer consumption. During normal times, consumer spending accounts for about 70% of economic activity. In California, analysts believe that the California Consumer Price Index will be close to zero this year, which has only happened once in 50 years, and that was during the Great Recession. The federal, state, and local governments have enacted a wide range of public policies, including a $2.3 trillion economic stimulus package, with possibly another $1 trillion to $2 trillion to follow. While market forces, businesses, and consumers cope with uncertainty and fear. The first $1 trillion stimulus package was enormous, about 10% of the entire annual US economy. The Congressional Budget Office is projecting a deficit this year of $3.7 trillion, far exceeding the record deficit of only $1.4 trillion in 2009. The longer the slowdown of economic growth, the longer the bounce back to normalcy. Other economists like Chris Thornburg of Beacon Economics say the recovery will be more rapid than the Great Recession's recovery. He said recently that the COVID recession is, quote, technically over because it has none of the long-term characteristics of 2008. He believes there has been no permanent shift in the structure of the US economy. Most economists expect low inflation for the next 3 or 4 years, somewhere between 0.5% to 3%. Combined with low interest rates, that should provide a more rapid recovery than we experienced during the Great Recession. The Federal Reserve announced that it will keep interest rates near zero, even if inflation exceeds the Fed's 2% target level. There are significant differences, however, between the 2008 Great Recession and the current recession. The 2008 recession was caused by subprime mortgage credit fraud. Recovery from the Great Recession was longer and slower than this recovery will be once we have a vaccine and have COVID-19 under control. Worker layoffs back then were more permanent. The US economy didn't fully recover from the Great Recession until 2015. The huge spike in unemployment, in which 22 million jobs were lost virtually overnight, is directly related to the sudden health pandemic. Workers laid off from profitable, sustainable businesses that were ordered to close. Initially, economists thought that the many job losses were temporary. But as the crisis drags on, it has become evident that many of the job losses have become permanent. Temporary furloughs have become permanent. So what are some of the economic implications of this pandemic on our real estate markets? Well, the most obvious, the travel, hospitality, and leisure sectors. They are hit first and hit hardest. Hotel and lodging sector is most vulnerable due to decrease in tourism and business travel, in addition to government-imposed limits on public gatherings, conventions, conferences, trade fairs, and of course, sporting events. Trepp Analytics, a data research firm, reports that 1 out of 5 loans to hotels are delinquent, and many hotel chains are on the brink of bankruptcy. The hotel industry is not expected to recover for several years. Next, the retail sector. The one sector that is increasingly weaker is retail. The downward trend of retail has accelerated rapidly since the COVID-19 crisis. Fear of social contact, plummeting consumer confidence has exacerbated the serious challenges already facing the retail sector, particularly in-store comparison goods retailers. Retail sales plunged 78.8% in April and May, and we can expect to see more for lease signs in windows of vacant storefronts. Restaurants, food and beverage outlets, supermarkets, major malls will continue to suffer from compulsory or self-imposed access restrictions. Several national restaurant chains are facing serious financial challenges. These include Outback Steakhouse, Applebee's, IHOP, Denny's, and the Cheesecake Factory. According to CBRE, it will be at least a year or two before the restaurant market comes back, and only when the public feels comfortable going there. A sharp decline in consumer spending by consumers who have lost their jobs is having a major impact on retail sales. The increasing prevalence of online shopping versus traditional brick and mortar stores all point in the same direction. Online sales are growing at 3 times the rate of in-store sales, and that trend continues to accelerate. Much of the brick and mortar retail industry was on life support before COVID-19. The retail bubble has burst, and the problem is not cyclical. I believe it's a forever trend. Traditional retailers were very late to e-commerce. The retail malls are leading the retail mess. Even before COVID, mall traffic was way down, and mall vacancy hit a 7-year high in 2019. Many mall tenants are delinquent in their rents, causing mall ownership to be delinquent on their loans. Nearly every major retailer is closing stores. Gone are the bookend department anchors in shopping malls. One major retail researcher projects that 30% of the nation's 1,100 malls will close in the next 4 years. Coresight Research projects that 20,000 to 25,000 US stores will close permanently this year, and 60% of those are mall-based. CBL Properties, one of the nation's largest mall owners with 90 malls, just filed for bankruptcy. The US is simply overstored. Many small mall tenants have co-tenancy clauses in their lease, allowing them to exit before the lease expires if a major tenant closes. Traditional shopping centers, particularly malls, are transforming into consumer centers with a mixture of uses, including fitness and health and wellness facilities, co-working operations, or being repurposed to converted to things like offices, affordable housing, distribution centers for e-commerce, classrooms, churches, and even transitional space for the homeless. Or many are just being demolished. Americans are spending proportionally less income on things and more on services. Well, traditional shopping malls sell things. With the inevitability of autonomous cars, vast surface parking lots present an opportunity for housing development. Investment in retail properties plunged 19% year over year. Millennials are a driving force behind e-commerce. Millennials grew up in a one-click world where speed and convenience is expected, indeed demanded. The decline of the middle class is having a profound effect on retailers. Deep discount retailers like dollar stores are doing extremely well. Before the COVID-19 recession, midline retailers were struggling, consistent with the decline of America's middle class. The barrage of retail bankruptcies, store closures, diminishing revenues, it all has become a survival of the fittest as name brand retailers, debt-ridden retailers like Circuit City and Mervyn's, Blockbuster, Borders Books, Loehmann's, Sports Authority, Linens and Things, Toys R Us, Payless Shoes, Forever 21, Tuesday Morning, Orchard Supply, JCPenney's, J. Crew, Neiman Marcus, Lord & Taylor, Brooks Brothers, and Sears continue to disappear. So is there a winner? Well, Victoria's Secret, sales up 68% since COVID. I don't know what that tells you. One retail leader described it as the 3 C's: closures, consolidations, and contractions. Nevertheless, e-commerce sales still represent only 10.7% of total retail sales, while an ever-increasing number of U.S. consumers are regularly shopping online. Seattle-based Amazon accounted for 53% of e-commerce growth in 2019. The entire retail industry shared the remaining 47%. Amazon's market cap reached $1.5 trillion yesterday, which is greater than the market cap of the other top 15 retailers combined. And those other retailers include Walmart, Costco, Target, Nordstrom's, Best Buy, and 10 others. Amazon's acquisition of Whole Foods sent shockwaves through the grocery industry. One industry expert described it as Amazon declaring war on every supermarket and corner store in America. Many believe that Amazon, Apple, Google, and Facebook are abusive monopolies and that our markets are no longer competitive. Google has 92% market share. Facebook owns 4 of the 5 biggest apps and 79% of the smartphone profits. Facebook has 2 billion subscribers, more than Christianity has followers. And Apple recently became the first $2 trillion company. At the same time, we are seeing transformational turn in the retail industry. It's called clicks to bricks. Established e-commerce retailer brands are starting to open brick and mortar retail locations, benefiting from their e-commerce brand and success, building a retail presence, and of course, improving their distribution footprint. As the giant retail corporations put small businesses out of business, author Anchor Galloway says that it has never been easier to become a billionaire and never been harder to become a millionaire. Consumer behavior is causing major changes to the retail sector. Jobs associated with e-commerce have increased 334% in the past 15 years, while jobs in traditional brick and mortar retail stores have been flat, and jobs in department stores, even before COVID, declined 25%. Excess Space Solutions Company projects that retailers are expected to downsize their storefront space by 40 to 50% in the next 10 years. Home values and home prices are directly related to the economy. During the Great Recession, residential property values dropped 50% in some geographic areas of this county. At the height of the Great Recession, my office proactively reduced the assessed value on 136,000 properties, nearly 1/4 of all properties in the county, reducing the assessment roll by $27 billion. The housing market was blindsided by COVID-19. While home sales have declined by 8% since COVID, prices have actually increased slightly in Santa Clara County, up 4.6% to $1.3 million. Historically, low mortgage interest rates combined with fewer homes for sale have caused prices to stay up. The high-end single-family market is hottest in Silicon Valley. Wealthy tech professionals are ignoring economic uncertainty driven by record stock prices and low interest rates and are snapping up expensive homes. We are beginning, however, to see an increased sense of urgency from some home buyers. Prices of condominiums, however, have declined significantly, nearly 15% in Santa Clara County. Many buyers are reluctant to purchase a home that they can't inspect from realtors they can't meet. Apartment rents have declined 12.9% in Santa Clara, 8% in San Jose, and 4.3% in Sunnyvale. And finally, small businesses who don't have the cash reserves to survive very long. Some small businesses and highly leveraged firms have begun to shut down permanently, many declaring bankruptcy. More than 8 in 10 small businesses have been negatively impacted by COVID-19. Nearly 2/3 of small businesses have 2 months or less of reserves to cover their business operations. So what impact has COVID-19 had on commercial real estate? This economic disruption could trigger a new cycle of loan defaults. Trepp Analytics projects that the default rate for commercial mortgages will rise 8%, up significantly from the pre-COVID-19 level of just 0.4%, with lodging and retail hitting the list. CoStar Risk Analytics projects that 13,000 commercial loans totaling $148 billion will default over the next 2 years. Defaults eventually lead to a surge in distressed property sales. Loans on multifamily properties are projected to lead properties in default. The largest U.S. banks, JP Morgan, Chase, Citigroup, and Wells Fargo, have taken large hits to their profits and have amended their assumptions about the length and the severity of the pandemic's economic toll. Heading into the current economic collapse, Americans had taken on a record amount of auto loans, credit card debt, and student loans. Corporate debt has reached record levels. COVID-19 is affecting the office market in different ways. Office tenants are considering renting less space as more employees telework from home. In Silicon Valley, office leasing activity is at its lowest level in 16 years, down 57% from the first quarter, while office vacancy was a modest 6.7% last month, and asking rents have been relatively stable. In an interview with the Silicon Valley Business Journal, former Cisco CEO John Chambers stated, 40 to 50% of large companies and 70% of startups will fail in the next decade. The confidence in the long-term prospects of the Silicon Valley office market, however, are surprisingly strong, while at the same time, tenant space requirements have declined 37%. According to CBRE, Silicon Valley is better insulated to withstand the recession compared to other markets. So here, who are some of the winners of this pandemic? Well, of course, the healthcare industry, healthcare, clinics and labs, medical device manufacturers, entertainment like Netflix, tech companies like Facebook, Apple, Google, and Microsoft, teleconferencing like Zoom, and of course, Amazon again. Amazon's pre-COVID sales rose 26%. Online retailers are benefiting, accelerating the impact of e-commerce on brick and mortar retailers. Self-quarantine or shelter in place of millions of Americans has increased online shopping, creating a demand for more logistic facilities. Distribution and data centers will continue to outperform other real estate. Disruption of global supply chains could ironically help warehousing and logistics as consumers shift from in-store purchasing to online, and consumer demands faster shipment, sometimes even same-day delivery. E-commerce must be located closer in city centers. Jobs in fulfillment, delivery, and related roles are growing at faster than jobs lost by brick and mortar retailers. Industrial real estate, particularly warehouse, which is the last mile of distribution, will be the most desired asset class in 2021. The vacancy factor for industrial properties in Silicon Valley is just 3.7%. Development, construction, and leasing activity will be delayed or canceled due to the heightened sense of uncertainty over the economic and business outlook. The Silicon Valley Business Journal reported that commercial developers are on a pace to complete less than half of the commercial space they delivered last year. That's based upon first quarter 2020 data prior to COVID-19. It's probably much worse now. In May, Boston Properties announced that they are suspending the development of all of their properties in the US with material lease risk up, including a 1.1 million square foot Class A office campus campus in San Jose. Kaiser Permanente canceled the $900 million, 1.6 million square foot office tower in Oakland. And more cancellations or delays of major real estate projects can be expected. Given the extended time it takes today to entitle and finance major real estate projects, this could have a long-term impact on critical real estate development, including both affordable and worker housing. A slowing economy also takes its toll on tax revenues, particularly here in California. Government spending is an important component of a healthy economy. There's a connection between economic growth and tax revenues. As tax revenues decline, so does government spending. Only 17% of GDP is tax revenues. It is clear that this is way too low to adequately recover from a deep recession like the one we're in. Uncertainty about how long the crisis will last and when it will end can create an almost as serious wait-and-see hesitation to engage in any meaningful economic activity. StratoDem Analytics is projecting that Santa Clara County is headed for a 15.7 plunge in economic output, a loss of $15 billion in economic value. Well, prior to COVID-19, Silicon Valley was facing some serious headwinds: record high housing costs, serious regulatory scrutiny of large tech firms, and a slowing population growth. And now COVID-19 on top of all of that. I believe we were in at the beginning of that normal recession I talked about earlier, before the COVID-19 pandemic. There are a couple of positive notes. Chris Thornburg, principal of Beacon Economics, said that California, particularly Silicon Valley, entered the COVID-19 crisis from such a strong economy that we are in a better position for a more rapid recovery. Pre-COVID unemployment was at a 50-year low. Our economy is also much less fragile than it was in 2008. The long-term future of the job market remains somewhat clouded, as more baby boomers are leaving the labor force than millennials, those born after 1980, are entering the labor force. McKinsey and Company analyzed the impact of automation on job growth and concluded that 46% of jobs could be replaced by current methods of automation by 2030. A Stanford computer science professor said at the 2019 Joint Venture Silicon Valley Conference that 50% of all jobs could be automated by artificial intelligence. For example, there are 3.5 million truck drivers and 700,000 bus drivers in the US who will likely be displaced by autonomous trucks and buses. UPS has been quietly delivering cargo using self-driving trucks. And Waymo, the self-driving unit of Google, expects to deploy robot cars outside the testing environment this year. Computers will replace your tax returns electronically. Medical diagnostics will be done remotely by computer. 3D printing of products like shoes and electronics will be available. Car ownership will be obsolete. Call a self-driving car when you need one. That means fewer accidents, lower insurance costs, fewer body and repair shops. Even major league umpires will be displaced by artificial intelligence. Lasers can call balls and strikes more accurately than humans. So what will work life feel like and look like when we reopen the economy? Well, the new normal will be anything but normal. COVID-19 is reordering virtually every industry. 3 Wall Street Journal reporters wrote in an article, and I quote, "Economic reopening will be fitful, fragile, and political." So here are some of their observations. Will we return to cubicles and kill the popular open office market? Will work schedules be staggered? Will employees be subject to frequent monitoring and temperature checks by walk-through temperature scanners? Is employee monitoring an invasion of privacy? Will office employees' densities, which have more than doubled in the last decade, be reduced? Will permanent teleworking explode with more employees working remotely and leasing less space. Will mass testing be required? Even self-administered tests. Will open conferences and meetings be replaced by Zoom, Skype, GoToMeetings, and webinars? And will customer service workers have less direct personal contact with customers? Well, those are my observations today. Tomorrow could be completely different given the environment today. So please stay tuned, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Wow, this is very valuable information. Thank you so much, Larry.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have been streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and other platforms today, and we have compiled some questions our viewers have for our guests. Before getting to the question and answer session, a quick reminder that we have a raffle drawing today. So our lucky winners will walk away with either a golf umbrella or a barbecue set. So please use the Google form for entry. It is posted in the general chat in Zoom. We'll end the registration for the drawing in the next 10 minutes so that my staff will have enough time to enter your names into a wheel of names and get ready for the drawing at the end of the seminar. So let's get started on the Q&A session. One question from our audience to Larry. My home is facing a highway. Instead of taking a comp on the same street facing the highway, county has appraised my home based on higher price comps from quieter streets. What can I do about this? Will I be able to lower my property tax with a lower assessment by using different comps, meaning the comps from the same street facing the highway?
Well, here's what that taxpayer should do. We're pretty good in the assessor's office getting things right, but we don't always get things right. We do overassess people, and we don't want to do that. So if you believe you're overassessed, you can file an assessment appeal. It's a very simple one-page form. File it with the clerk of the Board of Supervisors. Unfortunately, today is the deadline for filing an appeal for this year's assessment roll. It ends at 5 o'clock, so that's over. But if you believe you're overassessed, file an appeal. You'll be then contacted by one of our appraisers. You provide information. We need information. So if the taxpayer, the homeowner, or the property owner believes that the comps that we used are not the right comps, then provide us with comps that they believe better represent the value of their property. Now understand, those comps, those actual transactions that occurred, cannot be 90 days either way of the lien date, and the lien date every year is January 1st. So you can't go outside those parameters and pick a comp that happened in a better market or pick a comp that happened in a worse market. And we close the assessment roll every July 1st. I'm constitutionally required to do that by state law. When we close the roll, we're one of only 10 counties in the state that send notices out to all 498,000 property owners in advance saying, here's what your assessed value will be when you get your tax bill in October. If you believe that number on the notice is too high, then we ask people to ask for an informal review. We did about 3,000 informal reviews. I'm not sure about that number, but actually about 50% of them, almost exactly 50% of them, got a decline. So we do overassess people. We don't want to do that. We want to make it right, because that's why people have confidence in what we do. That was a long answer, but I hope it was informational.
Great answer. Yeah, thank you. And then the next question is, are commercial and residential assessments different in terms of property taxes?
Well, the values are certainly different, but Proposition 13, which passed in June of 1978, established a statewide single tax rate of 1% of the assessed value. So the tax rate on every property in California is the same, but obviously values are different. Values of the same types of properties are different. And it depends a lot on how long you've owned your property. Let me give you my personal example. I bought my home, 3,000 square foot home in Sunnyvale in 1975. I paid $80,000 for that home. It's assessed right now because it can only go up at 2% a year, according to the provisions of Proposition 13, can only go up at 2% a year unless there's a change of ownership or new construction. Zillow says my home is worth about $3 million, but it's assessed at $276,000 because the market value went up much faster than the tax rate and the increase in the assessed value at 2% a year. So if you came and bought my property today and you paid the fair market value, your taxes would go to $30,000. Mine are about $3,000.
It's good to buy early, huh? So that goes to the next question. Does Proposition 13 apply to both primary homes and investment homes?
Yes, it does.
So if the county, so the question from this viewer, if the county actually assessed one of my investment homes more than 2% per year, what do we do about that?
You complain. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that things can go up. If you did some improvements that were reassessable, or you had you sold part of your property, a partial transfer or something like that. But a property where you have a base year value, now it can go up if we reduced your property values because of the downturn and the market comes back, then we can increase the assessed value of your property by more than 2% until you get back up to what we call your factored base year value, that your purchase price increased by no more than 2%. So I gave you the example earlier that during the Great Recession, we proactively reduced the assessed value on 136,000 properties, reducing the assessed value by as much as 50% in some geographic areas. Well, we did that proactively. Well, then when the market started to come back as the recession receded, then we were increasing the assessments by more than 2% to reflect the increasing market values, sometimes as much during the 2012, 13, and 14, sometimes as much as 10 to 20% a year to reflect the market.
Got it. Thank you. So next question is, should I expect higher property taxes in times of recession to make up for vacant commercial buildings?
No, each property is assessed at its value, if I understand the question, and each tax rate is the same. There is something on the ballot called Proposition 15, which would change that. If it passes in November. And that would be to reassess all commercial and industrial properties to market value every 3 years. As I said, properties can only go up at 2% a year unless there's a change of ownership or new construction. Well, Proposition 15 would change that for commercial real estate. So assessors would be required, if it passes, and it doesn't look like it will in my judgment, but if it passes, then my office would have to reassess all commercial properties every 3 years back to market value.
Oh, wow.
So this will be one of the hottest ballot measures, arguments, if you will, that'll be on the November ballot. And I'm personally opposed to it for a number of reasons. They promise a number of things. They promise $11.4 billion worth of new revenue by 2021-22. Well, that's impossible. That's number one. So it also would require the reassessment of all property, as I said, to market value every 3 years. Well, what happens if you get your property reassessed to market value in year number 1 and the Great Recession or a pandemic comes along in year number 2? and your properties drop, as they did in this county, as much as 50%. That property owner is not going to sit still, I'm sure, and say, well, I'm assessed in year one at the market value, sometimes an 8 or 9 or 10% increase, and I'm just going to wait until year 3, and then it'll be equalized to whatever the market value is at that time. It promises, and this is the worst part about the ballot measure, it promises to exclude or exempt small businesses. Well, it doesn't do that. Most small businesses don't own property. They lease it, and they pay their property taxes as a percentage, something called the triple net lease, as a percentage of the property tax on the building they occupy. So if you're a renter, if you have a lease on a property that has been owned for a long time by your landlord, and the property taxes go up 10 times, you will pay your fair market share. Small businesses are not excluded because most of them lease property, they don't own it. That's why they're small.
Wow. Okay. And the next question is, are there any government programs or tax relief available for landlords who are not collecting rent?
I don't know too much about that. I know I'm a landlord myself, but the stimulus, they have rent eviction protection, tenant eviction protections were in place. They also have not rent forgiveness, but the ability to defer your rent, but the rent still goes up. And this is very dangerous, because if tenants don't pay their rent, even though they can't be evicted during the time they don't pay their rent, they're building a huge deficit, a huge debt back to the landlord. And of course, when the eviction protection ends, and it will, then their rent is due. And when you don't pay your rent, then it affects your credit rating. So when you move out of that property and move into another one, they're going to check your credit. So it is not really good. I understand that a lot of people are out of work, and a lot of people rent properties that don't have the money because of their employment situation. But it's very important to try to keep your rent up, or at least when the eviction protection ends, that you'll begin to pay your rent. Most landlords don't want to see vacancies, particularly in a recession. So most landlords will work with their tenants, to help them during times of crisis.
Got it. Next question is, has COVID-19 shutdown of businesses affected the property taxes your office is expecting to collect this year? Will there be a shortfall, and what will be the consequence of not being able to collect enough property taxes?
Not this year, but next year, big time. This year, as I mentioned, the lien date or the valuation date is January 1st. That was pre-COVID-19. So the assessments that were made in this year's assessment roll were based upon values on January 1st, 2020. Fast forward to January 1st, 2021. Businesses, as I said, the value of commercial property oftentimes is based upon the income it generates. Well, a business that's been ordered to shut, or a business whose income dropped off dramatically because of COVID-19, their properties are generally worth less. So if you're a business in that situation, pay close attention to what's happening in your marketplace at this time. And when come to January 1st, 2021, then you will be aware if there's any reduction in value. But my assessment is that there'll be a lot of that. Companies that have closed, lost tenants, real estate owners that have lost tenants, companies that have closed, will have a significant effect on the value of the real estate they have.
Well, what would be the consequence not being able to collect enough taxes for your office then?
Well, we expect a significant reduction. You know, as I said, we've been in a 10-year stream of success in business, in tech, in real estate, and for government. That will change dramatically next year. And the question is how much. Now, the residential market hasn't been affected at all, except in condos, as I mentioned, are down about 15% or so. But the single family housing market in Silicon Valley has remained strong. So most of the reductions that occur will occur on commercial properties as a direct result of the impact of COVID-19 on commercial properties.
Got it. So Larry, what is your view of the Bay Area residential housing price in 2021 to 2022? And also, what is your view on commercial real estate price in the same period?
Well, commercial real estate pricing, I think, because of all of the reasons I mentioned, will be down. Certain, like warehousing and so forth, you know, there are winners with this COVID-19. So there's certain types of real estate, data centers, warehousing, industrial, look a lot better than retail and rental housing. As for residential, I don't know. I mean, it seems to be holding up very well. I would expect that in a recession, a downturn, that would have some kind of negative impact upon residential properties as well, but we're not seeing that right now. And assessors, it would be very dangerous for assessors to project anything into the future, because people would hold me accountable for something that I shouldn't talk about and don't know.
Okay, there's another question asking you for projections. Larry, so do you think the high-end home prices in good school district will go down like they did during the Great Recession?
I don't know. I really don't know. As I said, it's always dangerous for the assessor to make projections into the future. I just don't have any idea. I do know this, that good school districts command more stable residential property values. That's always been the case. And so, you know, you can look at the school districts and how good they are. And that usually means that residential housing prices are higher than in other areas.
Got it. Yeah. So next question is, Larry, is there any way to defeat Proposition 15 as the commercial real estate are already facing very difficult trouble right now?
I understand that. Well, you know, it's a ballot measure. People go to the polls and vote. I know both sides, the pro Proposition 15 side are raising money primarily from the California Teachers Association, from public labor groups in favor of it. And of course, the commercial real estate owners are raising substantial amounts of money to oppose it. So you're going to see maybe more money spent on both sides of this ballot measure than in any other election in history. That means well over $100 million should be spent. Now, I mentioned to you that the recent poll I saw doesn't bode very well for the ballot measure. The poll was done by an independent consultant, survey company, independent of either side. And the poll showed 48.8% of the people surveyed would vote no, and 40.9% of the people surveyed would vote yes. So you have to be well above 50% at this point in, you know, within 50 days of an election in order to expect that to happen. When the commercial real estate owners and some of the commercial taxing agencies begin to spend money, I don't think that stands a very good chance.
Okay. And Larry, what information do you need regarding the appeal of the property value? Does the Zillow price work?
No, I mean, they're pretty good, but no, I mean, we don't take that. We want information. So we want actual comps that occurred, as I said, within that 90-day, either side of the lien date period on commercial properties. If you have an appraisal, we love to see that. That helps us a lot. Trying to stonewall the assessor doesn't seem to work. We need information. So when we ask for rent rolls, vacancies, if you have an appraisal, those kinds of things help us make the correct decision. Assessors are not interested in revenue. We want to put correct values on the roll, whatever they are. If we were just revenue oriented, then I would not have proactively reduced the assessed value on 136,000 properties and reduced the assessment roll by 27 billion. Assessors throughout the state, all 58 of us, are independently elected. And the reason we're independently elected is to make sure we're independent of the people that spend the money, the schools and the county. So even though I'm a county elected official, I don't work for the county. I work for 1.9 million people called voters and constituents.
That sounds great. Next question for you, Larry. Your opinion as to whether more people who can telecommute will move away from the Bay Area in terms of lower cost housing.
If permanent telecommuting catches on, and I'm not sure it will, yes. In fact, I just read in the newspaper that companies, I forget which company, but many of their people were moving out to houses they could afford. And so they just cut their pay, which is the way I guess a company evaluates it. We are some of the highest paid people in the country, probably the highest paid people in our tech industries. And we're high paid because there's a high cost of living here. So if somebody takes advantage of teleworking and moves away to a lower cost of living, I believe that the tech company, because most of the telecommuting permanently will be done by tech companies, has the right to say, we're going to pay you less because your cost of living is less. That's an argument that's going to occur increasingly. I don't think long-term permanent teleworking is going to work. Sounds good, it feels good, and it's certainly necessary during a COVID-19 crisis. But it's hard to operate. Team building, you can't build a team if the team members aren't there. Training, those kinds of things. So, sometimes the best ideas happen in the hallway, spontaneously, talking about a solution to something. Taking care of high-tech crashes. In other words, right now, if my computer in my office crashes or I have a technical problem, I have somebody up here to fix it in minutes. If I live 25 miles away and my computer crashes, do I have to send people to fix that computer problem? What happens to productivity in the interim? All kinds of things wrong with telecommuting. However, it does work for some jobs and it does work for some industry. Office like mine is more like a manufacturing process. We do one thing after another. There's deadlines all along the way. And as I said, I'm required to close the assessment roll every July 1st. There's no overtime. There's no extra innings. It must be done on July 1st. So if I'm restricted from following the process, then not everything will get on the assessment roll, and that means less revenue. So I don't think teleworking works permanently. It can work sometimes, and it's worked quite well, as a matter of fact, during COVID, where we had to send everybody home by order. But in the long term, I spend tens of thousands of dollars equipping a cubicle with ergonomic furniture, very expensive. I don't think a kitchen table or a desk at home serves that purpose. How about children? You know, some homes are conducive for teleworking, but I'm in a highly unionized environment here. And so I can't tell one appraiser that their house is okay to telework from because and another one that has children has a different environment. The thing about working in an office is the environment is consistent, and that leads to consistent productivity.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So the next question is, the tech companies have so much money in their bank. Would that not help keeping the stock market high? That's a question for you, Larry.
Well, I think, again, the stock market, I mean, I've worked on Wall Street. Stock market rarely looks back. They always look forward. So I get that question a lot. How can things be so negative on the economic side and so positive on the stock side? And the answer is because that's good news, because the confidence in what's in the future by the stock market tells an interesting story. And that's why a lot of people believe that the rebound, the recovery from COVID-19 will be much quicker than it was during the Great Recession.
That's great. And Larry, I think this could be our last question. Can't you not take more property taxes from companies and put a fixed cap on residential properties? How will people survive such high property taxes when they're getting old? You're lucky, but not people who are entering the market right now.
You're talking about residential or commercial?
Sounds like this is residential.
Well, you know, we have some of the lowest property taxes on residential property that exists in this country. For those states that have property taxes, 1% of the assessed value, which can only go up at 2% a year. And as people get older, the longer you've owned your property, the more equity you have. So I'm not, I mean, you know, when Proposition 13 passed, it passed for a legitimate reason. And that was the appreciation of residential real estate. The 4 years before June of 1978, it increased 80%. And each school district, city council, board of supervisors, special district was setting on an annual basis the tax rate. Well, I was a young council member in Sunnyvale in 1978, and we weren't reducing the tax rate to reflect the tremendous appreciation in residential property values to reflect that. And so people were being taxed from their homes, literally. And so Howard Jarvis and Paul Gann came along to fix that. So I mean, you know, I have, as I said, my assessed value is $276,000 and my home is worth $3 million. I don't think I'm getting old, which means I'm getting poor.
And they're saying you're lucky because you got it for so cheap, and that people who enter the market right now, if they were to buy your home, they have to pay $3 million. Then when they are getting old, they have to pay a lot more in property taxes. But of course, their property tax is also being capped by the 2% as well, right?
And that's why Proposition 13 is so unfair to younger people. The equity, the value is if with older folks that were able to buy their homes a long time before.
Yeah.
So a young tech worker would have to pay $3 million for my house that I paid $85,000 for. And so that's the complaint that a lot of people who are younger and first-time home buyers have against that system.
That's great. Thank you so much, Larry. It's so educational to hear what you say here. Now I think we're going to move on to our drawing. So if everybody can hang on for 1 second. Annette Kalik from First American Home Warranty is our proud sponsor of our Zoom seminars. Thank you, Annette, who brought us the gifts for the raffle drawing today. Annette, are you here, Annette?
I'm here. Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Once again, you are on your vacation site.
I am. So I'm in Lake Tahoe right now, but I made it.
Cool. Okay, so we have 2 gifts to give away. And then do you want to say start for the spinning of the wheel when you have the wheel on the screen?
And
yeah.
Did they already know what the 2 gifts are?
Oh, yeah. Why don't you show us the 2 gifts?
Okay, I don't have them on me. I'm sorry. I forgot to bring them to Tahoe.
Okay, so let's do the first one. Let's do the first one, the golf umbrella.
Oh, yeah, the golf umbrella. And then we have a barbecue utensil set as well.
Exactly. So let's do the golf umbrella first. Yeah.
All righty. Ready? Spin that wheel. Okay, stop.
Doesn't want to stop.
Did it do it?
Okay, Holden Lim.
Yay.
Holden, please stay behind and then give us your. Holden, are you here? Do we have a Holden here?
I'm here.
Okay, wonderful. Please stay behind and then provide your address, and then we can have the gift delivered to your home.
Thank you.
All right. So
Congratulations.
Congratulations. So next winner will be the barbecue utensil set.
All righty. Ready, set, spin that wheel. Stop.
We have a winner, Daniel Wang. Are you here, Daniel? Hello.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great. So yeah, please stay behind and then we can get your address and we can have the gifts shipped over to you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Larry, thank you again so much for your information. Are you still here, Larry? I guess he left. So thank you, everyone. If anybody want to hang around and then just introduce yourself, and you're welcome to do so as our Tuesday afternoon networking. Otherwise, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette, one more time.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you.